Hello everyone, Veronica here, and welcome back to 31 Days to Better Photoshop Design. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to create your very own stitch brushes. And a stitch brush is basically a brush that you can use to create a stitching effect on your images. It's really very simple. What you'll do is, you can see here, I have open my brushes preset panel, and to do that all you'll need to do is go over to your brush tool and activate it. And here you can see I have open just some very basic round brushes. And here in my brush preset panel, which you can access by going up here to your options bar and clicking this little tab right here, and you can see that it toggles the brushes panel. And here are all of the brushes that are available to me in this particular brush set. I already have selected a 32 pixel hard brush, which you can see here. It's a hard round 32. And that is the brush size that I'm going to be using. And I chose that brush size because I happen to know from experience that working on a 12 by 12 document, it makes a pretty good stitch size. And of course, you can always size it down. If you are working on a smaller document or you never use documents that large, you can of course go ahead and create something smaller, probably around a 12 or 13. But it's always better to size down than of course size up. So even if you do create a large brush, you always have the option to scale it down. Alright, so that's step one. You select a hard round brush, depending on what size you think you're going to need. And then you're going to come down here to spacing. And you're just going to use your slider to adjust the spacing on this. And you just want to create an even amount of space. And you can see what's happening here in my brush panel display is that I've got my spaces created. And of course it just looks like little round dots, which naturally is not a stitch. But we're going to fix that by going here to dual brush and checking that on. Now you can see it automatically changes into what looks a little bit more like stitching. You have the option to adjust your spacing a little bit more if you find that that is too much of a space for you. And if you look here, you can see that this stitching has rounded edges on the end. And if you don't like that effect, let's fix it. You'll come here to dual brush, click on it to open up these options, and here you can see you have diameter, spacing, and you don't really want to mess with this spacing because what it's going to do is change the size of that dual brush. And speaking of size, what I have selected here is an 18. You can choose smaller, which is going to make your stitching much thinner, and now you can see you do not have that rounded edge. But if you choose something too large, you can see that the dual brush has no effect. So you'll want to choose a brush, and the size that I had selected was 18, which is going to give you a fair size of a stitch. If you want it a little bit smaller, go ahead and choose that. That actually looks pretty good at a size 13, but you still have a bit of rounded edging there. So to fix that, all you want to do is change your diameter. And I'm going to size it down a little bit, just enough to get rid of those rounded edges. And I've changed my diameter about 10. It's slightly round, but not so much that it bothers me. And the very last effect that we're going to do is create a little bit of texture. And this will help to make it look more like thread. You can, of course, skip this step and use your own textures or layer styles or what have you, or leave it as is, depending on what kind of project you're working on. But what I'm going to do is click on texture, and you can see that the texture is applied, and this was a texture that I had loaded. But I'm going to change my texture, and what I've done is I've loaded a texture that I created from my, as you can see here, it says Get Texture Volume 4. Which you can find in my store. It's a denim textures pack. And I took one of the textures, which is just a basic denim pattern, and I put it on a slant. Okay? So now you can see we have our texture applied. It doesn't really look too much like stitching, but what I'm going to do is scale it down. And then you can see here, you can change your depth to make it a little bit tighter. And when you are scaling textures, you want to sometimes find a very precise number. If you see something and it looks a little bit blurry, you want to maybe try scaling it up or down a little bit. You can see by changing this to 25, it looks much sharper than it did at 26. And that's it. That is how you create a stitching brush. And what you want to do is to have this always available. You saw in my last video, I showed you how to save selection tool presets. You can, of course, save brush tool presets as well. So to do that, all you need to do is come here. You're going to click on New Brush Preset. And we're going to name this. I like to put my initials in front of my brushes. That way, all of my brushes are found in the same area, same location. But you can do this however you want. Okay, so, and I'll just name this and click OK. Now, if I come here to brushes, click on this little arrow here, click on Preset Manager. You can see that my brush preset has been saved right here. So anytime I want to use it, I just access it there. This is saved in the brush set that I have open. So this is basically my round brushes. If you want to save this set again, you just click on the set or any brush in here to activate it and then click Save Set. So let's say you wanted to create an entire set of brush stitches. That is what you would do. Delete all of these brushes, save only your brush presets, and then Save Set and name it accordingly. And you can have it again for another time. If you enjoyed this tutorial, stay tuned because next we're going to be using these stitch brushes to create an outline text effect. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, as always, remember to share, like, and subscribe.